Dre Baldwin. What an absolute pleasure speaking with Dre. Work on your game. As a child, he wanted to be a professional basketball player, and he worked hard at it, and he played in high school and he played in college. But the 20 points a season, not a game, that he was scoring just wasn't enough. And he came to the realization that it's not for me. And so, he's an avid reader. His parents were educators and turned everything around, has thousands of videos that just help people on to achieve and how to grow. He's written 33 books. He has 4 TEDx Talks, which are all spectacular. We talk about them. He does a great job of commanding the stage, and his message is deliberate and confident. And the topics we cover are just absolutely inspiring. I start by asking him, why do people fall short, or how do they fall short in achieving? But you're going to learn about what PIG is. Don't be a pig, capital PIG, the 80-20 rule, the third day. What does the third day mean? He says something so profound that I shared it with him, that I found it so profound that I actually had to pause and kind of soak it in. And I'm going to share it with you now. We respect your successes. We relate to your failures. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic, I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business? And it lasted over 25 years. Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission, how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family and their passion and their careers and how it helped them. Our podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. Dre Baldwin, thank you so much for being here. Really, really appreciate it. Where do people fall short when trying to achieve?
Man, that's a loaded question, Joe. You're going right into it. Where do people fall short when trying to achieve? I could give you 20 answers for that. I would say one of the biggest ones for people, especially for people who are high achievers. These are people who they understand the part about you got to show up and have some kind of plan. They have some semblance of, what's the word that I would use? They have some semblance of, the word is escaping me. It's competency when it comes to creating success. But often people are using what I call inaccurate formulas. And those inaccurate formulas cause people to stay at, it's not that they can't achieve anything, but what they do is they get to a certain level of averageness and they can't get past it because they're using these formulas that we get taught through our traditional educational channels and then reinforced by people who are presenting themselves as experts. Maybe they are experts, but they reinforce the same stuff. And I mean, those systems are designed to keep people average. They're designed to create average people. And that's what it does. It keeps people average. So that's one of the biggest ones.
Give me an example of one of these kind of formulas.
Oh, great. That's easy. The simplest inaccurate formula is hard work is the key to success. That's the most inaccurate formula in the world. That it was taught to us in school, taught to us by our parents. You play sports, you get it taught by your coaches. Somebody wins an award at the Emmy Awards or the Grammy Awards, or they win the MVP trophy at the basketball game. And you ask them, what was the key to your success? What's the first thing everybody says? Hard work. All right. Yeah. They thank God. Then they talk about how hard they worked. But here's the thing. There's a whole bunch of failures who work hard. There are a whole bunch of people not making money who work hard at their business. There are a whole bunch of people who are not getting results who work really hard. So hard work is an element of success, but it is not a formula for success. And a lot of people don't understand the difference between the two.
It's really well said, because you have to get some breaks, right, Trey? You
That's
have to
right.
catch some breaks, yeah. And some people say you create your own, and sometimes you get it, but that's a really good example. And you do such a great job. You have a lot of great content. Your TED Talks, your books. You're just trying to help people achieve and grow,
Yeah, that's right.
and
Well,
it's inspiring.
well, thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, that's what I've been trying to do since I came out, from the basketball world to the business world.
Yeah, let's talk about that. You wanted to be a basketball player all your life, and you came to the realization that you were
Yeah,
scoring 20 points in a season versus a game, and
that's right.
you're very humble about it, and you just you kind of had, what was the exact moment? You said you were kind of waiting for an agent, and it was in the fall when everybody's going back to camp, and you didn't get the calls. And what
Yeah.
was that like when you kind of came to that realization?
Oh, it sucks. It
Yeah.
sucks because when you're so I got into basketball. I got serious about basketball around age 14. So I played a bunch of other sports, but then 14 was basketball. And then you have, the high school years and the college years. And I played in college, but then when you get out of college and you're waiting for that call for the pro basketball. So when the fall season begins, it's the same as the NBA for people who don't follow overseas basketball. Most people do not. it's it's not nice outside anymore. I'm from Philadelphia. I live in Miami. Now it's nice
Right.
all year, but in Philadelphia, it starts to get not nice outside, so you can't hang outside. You're not in school anymore. You know what that was like. College life is pretty fun because you got a little bit of autonomy and also a little bit of a security. And now you're back at home with nothing going on, and all your friends are either back at school having fun or they're playing basketball. You're in the
Mm.
middle. You're one of my friends from my neighborhood. He called it being stuck in traffic. All right, so
Hmm.
you're stuck in traffic trying to figure out what to do next. So it is not a good space to be in, but your character gets revealed there, mental toughness gets built there, and it
Mm.
also gets real there when you're in that space.
But Trey, you turned it completely around, and you all this experience that you've gathered, and now you give it back, and you show people how to achieve and how to advance. It's a
Mhm.
wonderful turnaround. But that's a sign of a remarkable person, I believe.
Well, thank you. I'll take that.
Yeah. One of your, you got such great content, thousands of videos. Your books, I don't know what the number is, at least 20. The TED Talks. One of the ones I liked, so I'm in the tech field, and you kind of laid out three, great business habits, where your first one was to get ways to get money, and setting up for tomorrow, and meeting resistance and working through it. How did you arrive at these kind of habits? And you do a great way of communicating them.
Well, thank you. And the way I came about it was really, first of all, I've always been a big reader. So my mom's an educator. She had my sister and I reading and writing from a young age. So I've always been into reading books. So that's probably what led to me writing books, along with, as you said, you got to get some breaks.
Yeah.
Self-publishing became ubiquitous around the time that I got the idea of writing books,
Mhm.
right? So had I been 20 years older, I might not had the same opportunity. So that was one thing. I've always been a big reader, and I used to get books back when we had to go to the bookstore and look at the
Mm.
book and buy it. Right? There
Mm.
wasn't no Amazon. Right? So that's the era that I come from, at least a little bit. I'm half that era, half this era.
Yeah.
And then so that was one thing. Always been a reader, and always had some ideas that I felt like were a little bit different than the average person's ideas. I always knew I thought a little bit different than most people. And when I saw first blogging came about first, that was the first social media was blogging.
Yeah.
Then after blogging, then we got the Facebooks, the Instagrams, the Twitters, and all of that. And I always knew that I had some ideas that were different than most people. And when I saw that, it was an opportunity to express it. Oh, I could put this out to the world and anybody could see it. Now, I wasn't thinking about how am I going to get anybody to see it, but I just figured if I could just put it out and it is there, I really wasn't caring if a bunch of people saw it or not. Because mind you,
Mm.
2006, 2007, nobody's strategizing for building a brand on the internet. That wasn't a thing. There were people selling on the internet, a small niche group of people who were like
Sure.
early adopters, but most of us weren't like, or how do I create a strategy to get known on the internet? That wasn't a thing. So then when started to become a thing, I already had years of material that I had been putting out. So I already had kind of like a head start when it came to building what we now call an audience. So that's really, really where it came from. And then to directly answer your question, because I talk through it so much. It's almost like that 10,000 hour rule. I talk
Mm.
through so much of this stuff so much. So I got all those videos out. So I got, to this day, probably 8,000 videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
Half of them are basketball, half of them are not basketball. And then, just writing, blogging a lot. I blogged a ton. Then just recording and really just taking these ideas that I had and figuring out, how can I explain this to somebody who doesn't understand it in a way that they could understand it. So
Mm.
that's my that's my superpower. It's
Yeah.
taking something that the average person, they think is this way, but is actually this way. How do I build that bridge? And my communication skill is that bridge.
Yeah, you're very, very good at it. Your TED Talks are so kind of composed and mature and deliberate, and you got great presence, and you could tell you're just well rehearsed at it, and you know the material, and you're going through it. One of my favorites is the how to be confident when you're not, and you
Yeah.
have 3 steps. Act now, let go, assume the position, and you do a
Mhm.
very good job of going through them. Will you share that with us?
Yeah. So that talk actually, I think that's my most popular one in
Mm,
terms of engagement as far as the TED Talks that I've done. And that one really came from, man, where did that really just came from the ideas that I threw out to the committee once I got chosen to do that TED talk.
I
I put
see.
the idea out there, and they said, well, where do you want to, how do you want to do it? And they give you some ideas. They said, well, you got all these videos on YouTube. That's kind of what intrigued them. And you came from basketball, now you're talking about mindset. Why don't we take the stuff that people have been asking you on YouTube and how you've been responding to that and just go off of that? And that's kind of where
Mm,
that talk came from. So where those steps came from was really something I had been talking to people about for a long time. Just this concept of confidence, because coming from the sports world, especially when you're dealing with teenagers, a lot of kids have that performance anxiety where they
mm.
go through all this time and they practice. So they know that they can do the thing, but then when it comes time to perform it at basketball tryouts, or they go to the game and their parents are there and all the kids at school are there, they get anxious and they don't perform at the same level that they know they're capable of. So the frustration sets in. So they all start looking for, how can I be more confident and perform when it matters? And even though I was talking to 13 to 24-year-old male basketball players, that's what was the source material for that talk. That
Uh,
applies to everybody, right? Everybody has that challenge. I know how to do
Absolutely.
this thing, but now when everybody's watching, can I still do it? All right, can I still perform it at that same level? So it was a kind of like a universal message. That's why I think it went over so well. And then I took that concept of fake it till you make it, and I kind of threw rocks at it. So I think that's one of the things that got so much attention to that talk, was that I took that concept and said, well, this is actually not what you should do, and here's why. And again, it was building that bridge. Here's why you shouldn't do it that way, because of this. And people got it. I think I explained it plainly enough that anybody
Yes.
could understand it. A caveman could get it, and I think that's why it worked.
Is fake it till you make it one of those lessons that we learned earlier, that
Yeah,
we
it's an
talked about earlier?
inaccurate formula. Yes.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's just because it can only go so far.
that's right. It's like Cinderella. When the clock strikes 12, you go back to the rags. So if you're faking it, eventually you got to stop faking it. And then you go back to being an old person.
Yeah.
Now, it was just a temporary boost.
It's interesting. What you've done, perhaps inadvertently, is that you've gotten some of these rules that don't really pan out, and you add your own, what they really should be. You've kind of turned some of them around a bit.
Mhm.
It's noble. Why shouldn't we be a pig?
Oh, well, the pig is a professional information gatherer. And some people don't like eating pig. I like bacon. I mean, I guess. But some people are against eating pigs, but I don't mean that
Sure.
kind of pig. But the PIG is professional information gatherer. And that one I talked about a bunch of times. I don't know where you saw that. I said it more than once. But
Yes.
that comes from, especially in the world that we're in now, was, Jim, you probably remember at the turn of the century, there would be a lot of advertising, right before the internet kind of became the internet. It was, people were advertising this conversation of the information superhighway. Remember people used to talk about that? Where
Yeah.
we're going to take all the information in the world and we're going to basically put it at your fingertips. You'll be able to get all the information. You'll never have a problem with accessing information ever again.
Right.
That was a sales pitch, but they were actually telling the truth. All right,
Hmm.
that happened. So now we got access to all the information in the world, literally at our fingertips, all day, every day. And the thing is, there are no perfect scenarios in life. There are only trade-offs. So the trade-off of us having access to all the information in the world is that some people stopped actually implementing what they know, and they just gorging on the information. So that's how they
Mm.
become a pig. They're just taking in information, information, information. Well, let me learn a little bit more. Let me read another book. Let me take another course. Let me study a little bit more. Let me get a little bit more information before I actually go do stuff. So now you got people stuck in what's commonly known as analysis by paralysis, because now they're, or paralysis by
Just by
analysis.
analysis. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're just taking in more information, but they're never actually doing anything. And it's because it's available to us. So it's like, if you had a buffet table that stayed filled up in the middle of your kitchen, you're probably going to gain some weight because it's there.
Mm.
All right, not because
Mm.
you're trying to, but it's available. You're probably just going to keep taking it in, and that's what's happened with a lot of people taking in information. So I tell people that at some points you have to go on an information diet and just
Mm.
stop taking in information and just say, I'm going to work with what I have right here, or I'm not going to listen to 30 people on the concept of discipline. I'm going to listen to Joey Pinz and two other people, and that's it. I'm not listening to anybody else, anything else they
Mm.
have to say on the subject, because you're going to get overwhelmed, and eventually something you say and something that this other guy says are going to conflict with each other. Then what do? All right,
Mm.
so you got to pick who your mentors are going to be, who your experts are going to be, and you don't need to know everything. You just need to know enough to get to your specific outcome.
Yeah, well said. And you know, going more on that, having conflict and having people that disagree can be a very good thing, because well, that's their
Right.
perspective and that's their perspective. Now let me draw what mine is. But as far as like gathering information and deciding when to act on it, perhaps you talk often about the 80-20 rule. Is that
Mhm.
something that should be utilized, where 80% of results come from 20% of the efforts?
Yes, I'm a big fan of the 80-20 rule. And that one, I mean, it's a principle. So it's not like, it doesn't care if you agree with it or not. It's true.
Mm.
Right. So I'm definitely a big fan of that, 80% of the results of anything, whether we're talking people, information, actions, whatever, are produced by 20% of the inputs. And then if you break that down, you square it, it actually becomes the 164 rule.
Hmm.
So 1% of your inputs produce 64% of your results. So the thing is, especially in the world today, especially with entrepreneurs and people who kind of are doing their own thing, a lot of us burn ourselves out because we spend the whole day trying to do so many different things. But if you really thought about it, I mean, everybody has heard the 80-20 principle. It's not new to anyone.
Right.
If you really thought about it, all right, only 20% of what you're doing is producing most of the results. What is that 20%? And if you really sat and thought about it, for most people, it wouldn't take you more than 5 minutes to know what the 20% is. Are you actually putting more of your resources into that 20% than you're putting into everything else? The challenge for a lot of people, because of human beings, we're creatures of habit. We get into the habit of trying to do 17 things instead of
Yeah.
just focusing on the two or three that are really most essential. And it's hard to break that habit. So it's not that we don't intellectually understand, okay, these 14 things are useless in the most part, essentially useless, but you can't stop yourself from doing it because you're so used to doing those things. And if you only spent your day doing two or three things, you'll feel like you're not working hard enough. Right. And then you just go right back to the habit. And this is the cycle that many people live their entire lives in, that
Mm.
cycle. And then eventually they retire, and they didn't get all they could have gotten out of what they had, simply because they were focused too much on the non-essential things rather than the essential things.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me how pig ties right into 80-20. You got to get to a certain point where you're going to react on that. You just
Sure.
talked about retirement. You bring up a study in one of your excellent videos where they studied males
Mhm.
65 and older, and 1% achieved and were rich. 20 were okay, but 80% were financially, they had to keep working, or they died. I
Right.
guess that really follows up on what you're talking about there. People aren't reacting and following through with what they're learning.
Yeah, the 80-20 principle is undefeated, right? So you can apply it to
Mm.
anything, and it pretty much plays out.
What is your writing process, Trey? With all those books, I see them behind you, yeah, on the
Yeah.
website. Do you come up with an idea first? Do you put pen to paper, then to the computer? What is your process?
I don't remember the last time I put pen to paper. So
Uh,
only time I put pen to paper is I'm signing a check or a contract. But actually, not even contracts. We do that
no,
on the
we do the
computer
eat.
now. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
on Adobe and all that. So now I don't even do
Right,
that. Only time I do it is signing the check, and most of the time I don't do checks anymore because they take too
right.
long. Yeah. So
Yeah,
actually, I don't know how to write with my hands anymore. So to answer that
interesting.
part, everything's on the computer. So, and actually, I type a lot on my phone, Joey. I type. faster on my phone than I type on a keyboard, on a computer
Whoa.
keyboard. Yeah, because I've been
With your
typing on my phone.
thumbs.
Yes, that's right.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm faster on the phone than I am on a computer keyboard. I'm not slow on a computer keyboard, but I'm faster on the phone.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, so I come up with the idea. I usually come up with the big idea, what the book is going to be about. And I usually come up with the title pretty much. That's like the first thing. Usually the first thing I come up with is the title.
Hmm.
Then what I do is I do it outline style. So I basically figure, all right, if I'm going to write about topic X, what are the 15 big points that go underneath this topic? Then I come up with those 15 big points, and then I just get into my document, whatever it is, and I just start fleshing out the points. And that's it. And I just keep writing until I'm done.
And how do you know when you're done?
Just after I've said everything I want to say.
Yeah. And why self-publish versus going to a publisher?
Well, I have worked with a traditional publisher before. One of my books, Work on Your Game, which is right there. That one I worked with a traditional publisher. And, well, we could have a whole conversation about that. But what I would say is, because I had another publisher they offered to work with me on a publishing deal right after I finished Work on Your Game. And I said to them, if I do a publishing deal with you, it's going to have to be a Godfather offer. All right. And people don't know what that means. I said it has to be an offer that I can't refuse.
Can't refuse. Yeah.
for several reasons. I'll give you the bullet point list. And if you want to go deeper, we can. Number one, it takes too long for the book to come out when you work with a traditional publisher. It takes like from the time you sign the contract to the time the book comes out, you're talking 2 years minimum. Unless you're talking about a hot button subject, like something that's popping on the news right now, then it might come out faster, but other than maybe a year. But if it's a personal development, which is never hot button, you're talking 2 years. Number two, you got to go through the bureaucracy of the publishing company. And They got multiple people over there, and if somebody doesn't like something, and they try to whitewash some of the things that you say. And I remember I have a chapter in my book. I'll give you an example. My book, Work on Your Game, I have a chapter called Selling Yourself, Chapter 7, Selling Yourself. That's all about putting yourself out there, getting your name known, like basically how I ended up on this show, which maybe we'll talk about that. You have to sell yourself.
Yes.
And the editor, while we're going back and forth in the editing process, she wrote in the notes, she said, this title is a little risque. You think we should change it? And I said, you got to be joking. All right, what are you even talking about? But they're corporate. Like, this is what you got to understand. So this company, they're corporate. So this is the way that she thinks. Her mind is wired that way. And I'm like, what? Nobody would even think about that.
You mean prostitution? Is that what she's alluding to?
I think that's what she was alluding to. I think I didn't even engage her. I said, you gotta be joking. And they didn't change it. She left that one alone. But this is the kind of stuff that when you deal with a publishing company, this is the kind of stuff that happens. And they're trying to angle everything towards, what's the bureaucracy wants. But you're not selling to those people. Now, I know who my audience is. So that's the second thing, is all the bureaucracy and the channels you have to go through. Number three, they take too long to give me my money. And that's the most important thing. I'm in the sales business. I'm not in the book business. I'm in the sales business.
Yeah.
Right. So you got to wait all along for the money. You sign a contract. You got to wait 3 weeks before they do they send you the money. Even though it's a wire transfer, you got to wait 3 weeks. And then after you finish the manuscript, then they have to give you the rest of the money. Depending on how the contract is, but everything's wait. Everything's hurry up and wait. All right. I don't like dealing with that. I don't like hurry up and wait. I want my money today. That's the kind of business that I like. So that one, and what else? And I mean, why do I need them? I don't need them. Here's the biggest part. If I sell a copy of that book on Amazon, I don't make that much money. But if I sell that book myself, I make way more money. So I'd rather sell it myself. Yeah. So I just ordered this book is from a traditional publisher, Work on Your Game. I just emailed the publisher today, as a matter of fact, and told them, send me 50 copies of the book. They charge me the author rate for the book, so it's a discounted price. Then I go sell it, and then I can upsell you all these other books, right? So on one transaction, I make a lot more money if I sell it directly. Even if I had to buy the copy myself, I make more money if I sell it directly to you through my website than if you go on Amazon and buy that book.
Is it another example of, corporations taking advantage of the artist, right? We see this time and again in all artistic endeavors.
Okay, I could say that, but at the same time, you still got to sign a contract. Right?
Yeah.
So the good news is these days you don't have to. You can put out a book without ever talking. You don't ever have to meet a publisher or even ask. I never pitched myself to a publisher ever in my life. They came to me about that book. I didn't try to sell them on, hey, I'm an author. You should put my book out. They came to me and said, would you like to do? And I knew they could do a good job. This is an amazing book. It's very well written. The editing was perfect. The editor was amazing. She's very
Mm.
good. Too bad she's corporate. And if she wasn't corporate, I'd hire her to work on my other books.
Right.
But you only get taken advantage of with your permission. You got to sign the contract. Nobody
That's a
makes you
really
sign
good point.
it.
It's a really
Yeah.
good point. Prince has a great quote. Somebody in the media asked him, how's the record business? And he said, I'm not in the record business. I'm in the music business. So there's the
Yeah.
big difference there. He's in the content creation like you are, and perhaps like I am as well, just getting, good content out. Before you mentioned selling yourself, you have a great video you do a 2-parter on just selling, and kind of people have a bad, used car salesperson. They have a bad perception of sales,
Right.
where without it, your business cannot exist. You still
That's
have
right.
to sell a service or product that's essential. And you kind of go through the goods and bads there. How can we get over the hump of sales are not bad and it's essential, and you're selling something perhaps that somebody really needs?
Great question, Joe. So, first of all, to piggyback on the point you made about Prince,
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if you're a rap fan. You familiar with Jay-Z?
of course.
Okay, so what business you think Jay-Z's in?
Well, I mean, he's multimedia, right?
Yeah,
Jay-Z's, I mean, what would, if I had to, essentially, I would say entertainment. Well, he still does clothes. He does drinks. He does, I mean, he's a conglomerate.
yeah.
So I don't have an answer.
I say he's in the money business.
Oh, yeah. If you essentially look at it that way. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, his business is
Yeah.
making money. Now,
Yeah.
now you said you quoted Prince, and Prince said he's in the music business. See,
Yes.
that's how artists end up getting robbed, because they think they're in the
Mm,
music business when they're actually in the money business. The company
interesting.
they signed a contract with, that company's in the money business. They don't care
Yeah.
about your music. I mean, they care about it to the extent that can this make us money, but they really care about the art? Not really, right? That's why they're in the money business, and that's how you get the proverbial starving artists, right? Is
Right.
these artists who think they're in the business of creating their art, and they are in that business. The thing is, you can't run a business focused just on the art. You run a business by focusing on the business. So we go right back to that 80-20 rule. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. There's certain economic realities that artists must realize.
That's right. And the good news is these days, information superhighway,
Mm,
you can get access to this information. There are people like me and you telling people this if you're willing
yeah.
to be open to it. Whereas 20 years ago, you might fall victim, and literally you were
Mm,
victim because you didn't know what you didn't know. But this year, now, and I'm assuming this is going to come out in 2023, all right,
yes.
that's not an excuse anymore. Right? You
Right.
can't, ignorance is no longer an excuse. I tell my audience that all the time. You can't claim ignorance in 2023. You got Google. Right? That's not okay.
Yeah, and the paradigm has shifted. When I was a kid, we would go to concerts for $10, right, $15, and the artists didn't make money at concerts. They went there so you would buy their album.
Yeah, it's
They,
promo.
that was it. But now the albums are pretty much given away,
Yeah,
and they
make no
make
money,
money
right?
on the shows, right? People
Right,
go
it's flipped
to.
around.
So we pay $400 for a ticket now, and
Yeah,
and that now with books it's kind of similar because you could publish it yourself, right?
uh,
And you don't need them at all, and then you make the sales that way. It's fascinating the way it's turned around. I don't know if it's good or bad; it doesn't really matter. But the reality is that it's here.
that's right. And it's understanding where the business is going and making the necessary adjustments. But that's 100% correct. The artists nowadays, the albums, you think about that. I remember my favorite album of all time is 50 Cent, his first
Ah,
Get Rich or Die Trying. That came out,
yes.
that was right around my 21st birthday, that album, 20 years ago. And I remember going to the store. I went to Best Buy. I skipped class. I was in college at that point in Altoona, Pennsylvania. I skipped class and went to Best Buy to buy 50 Cent's album, and it was like $21.
Yeah.
Right, but now if an album comes out, your favorite rapper puts an album out, you're essentially not paying for it. I mean, you pay
No,
the streaming.
just stream
What are you
it.
paying?
Yeah.
$12 for a month, but you can stream every album. Like, so how is any artist making any money off making albums? They don't make anything. It's
Oh,
nothing.
all right.
It's crazy. So yeah, all the money is in everything other than actually making the music. So
Exactly.
you can't be an artist anymore. Really, you have to be a business person, or you sign with somebody who will handle all your business,
Mm,
and hopefully they do right by you, whether you sign with the company or you have ideally a business partner who is a business minded individual who's out there focused on the money. You need a shark. And in the sales world, we call those people sharks.
And we
So you need a
certainly
shark.
do.
Yeah, who's chasing after the money. I forgot your original question. We got on kind
Well,
of tangent.
I remember my daughter asked me, she wanted to go to the 50 Cent concert. And I said,
Yeah.
here's $1, bring your sister. And that's a joke. That's just a bad joke.
That's a good one.
I said, I was talking about sales
Yeah.
and how the perception of it is ugly and what we need to do to turn around because it's essential to grow your business.
Yeah. So if somebody's an entrepreneur, if you call yourself an entrepreneur, you should not have this problem. So usually these are people who are not entrepreneurs, but they want to make money. And I help people understand that, listen, if you want to make money, you are in the business of making money. That's the business that you're in. I don't care what
Yeah.
you sell. You could be a personal trainer. You can be an author. You can fix broken iPhone screens. You can be a dog walker. You are in the business of making money. And this is how I explain it to people. Business means the exchange of resources between people. And usually one of those exchanges involves money. I give you something, a product or service, you give me money. That's the
Yeah.
business. So anything that we do, you could do it for free if you wanted to. Like, I could write books for free. I could go and do speaking gigs for free. I could coach people for free if I wanted to and not charge any money. So is that a business? No, because no money being exchanged. It becomes a business as soon as I start charging for it and people start paying me. So the business literally is the exchange of the money. That's the business. So whatever you do for a living or whatever you call yourself that you are a blank, the thing that makes it a business is the fact that you're doing it for money. You could do it for free and it's a hobby, right? You can watch other people do it. You're a fan. You want to be a professional, you have to do it for money and you got to charge for it. That's the way that it works.
You know, I'm in the tech field, and clients used to every once in a while argue about an invoice. We don't think we should pay for this. We should get a discount. And I said, well, if we stop charging, we won't be able to support people anymore. We won't be able to do our work. So it's just a simple reality that you need to collect money in order to work, in order to pay expenses, in order to get some kind of profit. I think it was one of your TED Talks. You said something so profound that I actually kind of had to pause it and step away and just reflect on it. And you said, we respect your successes. We relate to your failures.
That's right.
That's so profound, Dre.
Yeah. And that is especially for people who get on stages, any form of a stage, like a podcast, a YouTube video, or real life stage, is that only way you get on that stage is by being successful. I heard Jim Rohn say this from way back in the day. He said, it'd be great if we could have failures come give speeches so they can explain how they messed up so nobody can make the same mistakes. Right. The thing is, nobody wants to pay them. Nobody will pay a failure to give a speech, right? They will only pay the successful people. So your successes is what gets people's attention because you can hold up, hey, I made this much money, or I built this company and sold it for this much. I exited for $1 million, or I played basketball pro all this time, or I wrote all these books. Or you hold up your accomplishments to impress people. And you have to impress people if you want to get their attention. You have to. That's just the way, that's human wiring. That's not a societal thing. It's just human nature. But if you're standing on stage and you're this shiny, perfect person with all these successes, but you've never been in the position of the people sitting in the audience who are sitting there like, all right, I had to max out my credit card just to come to this event. Right? I don't know how I'm even going to eat while I'm here for this week. Right? I got to go back home and figure everything out. I don't know where my business is going. I haven't made a sale in a couple of weeks. I don't even have a prospect. I don't have any leads. What am I going to do with my business? If you on the stage, Mr. Perfect, shiny individual, cannot show them that you can relate to their position, then everything you say is going to go in one ear and out the other. They're not going to get it because they're like, this person doesn't get me. They don't know what it feels like to be me. It's great that you're great and you've done all these great things, but how can you relate to where I'm at? And that's where you got to kind of tell people the messy part of where you were. And this is why most good speakers or thought leaders or experts, they usually every now and then they share with you the times when things weren't so shiny for them because you have to. That's the only way an audience can relate to you.
I remember Jamie Foxx had an interview once where, he started as a stand-up comic. He turned into an actor, an Oscar-winning actor. And, he, at a particular point after a lot of his success, he was starting to do stand-up again. And he was starting to talk about, I'm having problems with my house, 40,000 square feet. And all of a sudden, people could not relate to him because he was having kind of these problems that really successful rich people have. And his cohorts, his companions there, he said, you got to stop talking about that stuff. Nobody's relating to that to you on stage anymore. You've got to kind of take it back a little bit. And he didn't realize what he was doing. He was just trying to make people laugh. And so just like you said, you just you have to be relatable when you're up on stage.
Yeah, that's right. So a lot of comedians, I don't watch a lot of stand-up comedy, but I noticed when I do watch it, they often talk about things like relationship problems, problems with their kids, family problems, because everybody has those, no matter how much money you have.
Yeah, very relatable. And you do a really good job of that with your TED Talks and with your videos. Really good job. So, on the podcast, and you spend a lot of time, on discipline. So, I lost a lot of weight. People, the first question, right, they want to ask is, how'd you do it? Like, they want some quick answer, Dre. Nobody wants to put in the hard work, and I started my business and I got up to 340 pounds, didn't realize that the doctor said I was pre-diabetic, I was pre-hypertension. He said, well, actually she said, if you don't lose the weight, you're not going to see your daughter graduate. So, I lost a bunch of weight over a year and a half, but people always want a short answer. And I always say, well, the answer is discipline. That's how I lost it. So how does discipline play a role in your life?
Wow. Well, discipline is the biggest thing. It's the most important aspect. It's the most important trait, because mindset's the foundation of everything we do over here at Work on Your Game. And I always have stuck to mindset is the foundation of all success, the foundation of all failure. And discipline is the first piece for mindset. Most people, when it comes to mindset, you ask them, what do you need? If you ask the average person, most people say they would just want to be more confident. They want to have more self-esteem, healthier self-image. Now, people in my world usually bring up disciplining and consistency because they know that's what I talk about. But the average person would usually say confidence. And discipline creates confidence. When you're disciplined, usually you become more confident because you know that you have done the work. You showed up. You paid your dues. You did the things that you're supposed to do. So what was your question again?
How does it play a role in your life?
Oh, well, everything I do is I wouldn't say everything 100% all the time, but I'm always aiming to be more disciplined. I'm looking at the process of what I'm doing. So if I feel like I'm not having the right kind of energy through the day, I'm asking myself, all right, where in my process can I make a change so that I can have better energy? I can have good energy in the gym today, or my energy is dipping in the middle of the afternoon when I'm sitting at my desk working. Or how can I change the process to make that work? Or am I drinking enough water on a daily basis? I'm working out in the morning. Am I getting enough water in through the rest of the day so that I'm not dehydrated or my energy is not falling off by the end of the day? And I'm in a humid climate. So I'm always looking at the process of what I'm doing. And the thing is, and the reason why I'm bringing up process is because discipline is a byproduct. Discipline is not the start of you having consistent outcomes. Discipline is the end product of having consistent process. So in other words, this is what I've said this to my audience in the past. Any discipline challenge that you have is actually a structural challenge. So if you think about it yourself, Joe, you said you lost, how much weight did you actually lose?
130.
All right, so if you lose 130 pounds, it wasn't you sitting in a room and looking in the mirror and saying, and by the way, everybody who's listening, I have no idea if I'm right or not, but I'm going to go off my expertise in this space. And Joe, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. You didn't sit in the room and look in the mirror and say, all right, I'm just going to be super disciplined now. And then, you just start telling yourself to be disciplined every day. And then you lost 130 pounds. What I'm guessing you did was you put a structure in place and a system and a process in place that all you had to do was follow the structure, follow the process, follow the system. And because you were following it, you became disciplined because you were following the process.
Interesting.
And because you became disciplined as an end product, then you lost the weight. Is that true or not?
That's very cool. So you put like process before discipline. That's right. So to me, the three pillars of health, Dre, are diet, exercise, and sleep. So I changed my diet and I increased exercise and I made sure I slept well. People can add different things, but so absolutely. I stopped drinking sugary drinks and I still like the hamburger, but I ate half instead of a full. You just cut the calories back. But you're right. You set the process, and it's interesting. I never really thought of it that way. It's and then discipline came after the process. I get a lot of pushback, Dre, from people saying, discipline's not important. Empathy is, and love and compassion. And
No.
again, I don't think there's a wrong answer, by the way. I think everybody's answer is fine, but
Yeah.
don't you need a little bit of self-discipline to do those things?
Absolutely, you need discipline. And anybody who says, well, first of all, as you said, they're not mutually exclusive. Right? You can have both. You can be empathetic and loving and passionate at the same time. You can be disciplined. I mean, you have kids, right? People here have kids. Right? You got to be all of those things with your kids. You can't just be empathetic, loving, and passionate, have no discipline with your kids. They end up in jail. Right? They end up dead. All right. So you don't want to do that. You need all of those pieces. So as you said there, like when it came to your weight loss, you said it was diet, sleep, and exercise.
Yeah.
So you got a process for diet. Okay, this is what you can eat. This is what you can't eat. All right, this is how much. This is how much not to. Here's how much you need to sleep. Here's what you need to do in the gym every day. Whether someone else, did you hire a trainer, nutritionist?
I did.
Okay, and you had somebody telling you what you can eat, what you can't eat, right?
Absolutely.
All of that was process.
Yeah.
Because you put a process in place, all you had to do was what you've been doing since you were 5 years old, since you've been in school, which is what? Show up and do what you're told to do by an authority figure. Your trainer, your doctor, your nutritionist, they're authority figures in those spaces. They said, do this, 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 don't do this, this, this. All you did was follow instructions, which any human being can do. And because you followed instructions, that became a process. And because you followed the process, it became a habit, and those habits became a discipline. The discipline produced a result.
Wow. And when you're a coach as well, because you have a lot of classes that you offer, and do you find that sometimes the students lack discipline, and you kind of have to provide the structure for them?
Oh yeah, that's one of the main reasons people come to me. Yeah, whether it's personal, most of the time it's a mix of personal and business. So my coaching is a mix of your personal stuff and your business stuff. I don't separate the two. So a lot of entrepreneurs that I work with, their biggest challenge is not making more money, even though everybody wants to make more money.
Of course.
Nobody leaves that out of the conversation. Everybody, no matter how much they're making, they want to make more. But often people, their success comes at the cost of they're not doing other things like working out, spending time with their family. They're burning out. They're gaining weight, or they had lost the weight, but now business is taking off. They're making more money than they ever were making. And because of that, they don't work out anymore. So now they gain 30 pounds. How can I balance these two? I don't want to give up the money, but I need to lose this weight. So often I'm working with people whose their biggest challenge is not necessarily the money, but again, they're not discounting the money. So, and it's also people who need a combination of both. They never have even thought about the stuff that we're talking about here, but they know they need it. So when they hear somebody like yourself or myself talking about it, they're like, all right, that's interesting. How can I get that in my life? And also they're looking at the results. I mean, let's not forget about that. As we talked about a few minutes ago, they see your results. If you tell people that you lost 130 pounds, somebody who's 50 pounds overweight right now, they're going to come to you, right? So somebody who wants to write a book, they see me and I say I wrote 33 books. They're going to come to me, right? Because they're trying to get that thing done. What's the process? What's the system for me to do that?
And that's fascinating to me. So you're almost turning into a bit of a mentor to some of these people as well.
Yeah, I am a mentor to anybody who works with me. I am a mentor to them, but I prefer to charge money for it, and I call it coaching. That's what we say in the business.
Oh, I didn't figure that. So coaches charge and mentors don't. I didn't realize that, but I guess that's true.
Yeah, that's what I found. I was talking to a guy. I'll tell this story. I was talking to a guy a couple of weeks ago, and he got on a conversation with me about coaching. I made him an offer for coaching. He said, all right, I'm going to take a look at this, Dre. I got another guy who's going to make me an offer too. Let me talk to him first, and I'll weigh the two offers and see who I get back to. All right, fine. So he goes to the other guy. Other guy makes him an offer. It kind of low balls me. So he's negotiating with me on trying to get me to come down on my price. We agreed on a number in principle. And I'm telling him, all right, if we're going to do this, you need to put down a deposit. I kind of gave you a little bit of a discount. You got to make a deposit. He says, I'll get back to you in 24 hours. He gets back to me in 24 hours. He says, well, I found a mentor who's going to do it for free. And that was it. So mentor, so anybody who's out there, mentor means free. Coach means you pay. So I am a coach. I'm not a mentor. I'm a mentor from afar. You go listen to my podcast and watch my YouTube. I'll mentor you. But if you want to talk to me, you pay me.
Yeah, very interesting. Dre Baldwin, what motivates you?
That's a great question. Really just leaving a legacy, squeezing all the juice out of this orange, all the ability that I have. I want to get it all out there and leave an impact, be a role model for my children. I only got one child right now, but if I have more, be a role model for them of what it takes, how to handle yourself, how to present yourself. And I want work on your game to be that thing that kind of like work on your game could be like Xerox, right?
Mm,
Somebody said make a Xerox of this. Like, Xerox is the name of the company, but we all call it Xerox. It became
we sure do.
ubiquitous with copies, right? So
Yes.
I want work on your game to become ubiquitous with personal and professional development.
Hmm.
Because you get it as soon as you hear it. I mean, it makes sense, right?
Yeah,
So
when I heard it,
that's what we need
yeah.
to do.
And how do you measure success?
Oh, that's a really good question. I measure success by, first of all, having a clear goal, and you are taking actions to get to that goal. So you are consistently doing things to get to Earl Nightingale called it a worthy ideal. So you have those goals in place, and you are consistently taking actions to get there. That's success.
That's remarkable. You do a really good job of telling people to make goals at the beginning of the month, and they
Oh
should
yeah.
be realistic. Realistic, not just I want to be skinnier or so. Make it an actual achievable goal with something that's measurable, and that's really important. Write it down. They want to be able to see it. I love that message about you.
No, thank you. Yeah, I
Yeah, it's
try to tell people that every month. Get some goals.
well, Trey, an absolute pleasure. I was so excited. Excuse me, when I heard from your team and learning about you and watching your TEDx, you're inspirational. How can we get in touch with you?
Oh, well, I'm on Instagram. I think that's where you see me talking about the goals. So my
Yeah.
Instagram is at Dre Baldwin, just one word. I'm using the stories function all the time. So if you want to just get a better feel for my personality, just my day to day, or some of it, then definitely follow me on Instagram at Dre Baldwin. And as far as my books, I give people a free copy of my book called The Third Day. That's this one right here. The decision that separates the pros from the amateurs. You get the paperback copy of this book for free. Just cover the shipping. Just go to thirddaybook.com. And this book is all about how do you show up and deliver on the days when you least feel like it. We call that the third day. So that first day, you get in the gym, let's say, for example, you're all excited. You got your new trainer. You got a 20-pack of training sessions. You feel great. Tough workout, but you are excited about it. Second day, a little less excited, but still feels good, still relatively new. And by that third day, you realize that this is not all fun and games. It's not a big party, it's a job. What are you doing that day? That's the day right there that separates the people who are serious from the people who are just dabbling. So that third day doesn't have to be 1, 2, 3 in a row. It's any day. It could be 10 days in a row. You can have a third day for 6 months straight. It's
Mm,
just that situation where the thing is not new anymore. That new car smell has kind of worn off,
right.
and now you got to show up and actually grit and grind through some days, and we all have days like that. So the third day is about how do you systematically and strategically be ready for it and get through those days so you can get to what we call the fourth day, when the work is still hard but you make it feel easy. So that's what that book is about. Books free, just cover the shipping. Thirddaybook.com.
Yeah, when you're TEDx, you talk about the third day, and I love
Yeah,
when you describe that. And it's kind of like the honeymoon's over at this point, right?
that's right.
It's time to kind of get down and understand, and the excitement's by, and we really got to get work. Also, workonyourgame.com has a lot of it sends you off to your YouTube channel and Facebook, and the really good site there as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. I got a lot of content on. I'm on all the social media platforms, so everyone
Yes.
is out. I'm out there. So whichever one you like, just type in my name, Dre Baldwin. I'm pretty easy to find.
And I'll make sure we'll put those in the show notes. Trey, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. Next time I'm down there in Miami, perhaps we'll get a cup of coffee.
All right, sounds great.
You
I
be
appreciate it.
well. Take
Thank
care.
you. Appreciate the time.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Would you like to financially support the podcast? You can go to our Patreon site. Consider $5, $10, or $20 a month. There's all kind of plans that we have there. There's like a one-time payment. What is this podcast episode worth to you? $25, $50, $100, $500, $1,000, $5,000. You be the judge. You can go to our PayPal account to do that as well. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Disciplined Conversations.